Cleaner Counts Committee has been looking at this for several months in conjunction with the city administration, and we've looked at what the bottom line cost is that with the grants, moving on the grants while they are available now, we're looking at our cost of $136,760, and payback being 2.5 years out. And as Mr. Sauer said, you're saving 74% a year just on the cost of the energy, and not to mention the footprint of carbon. Thank you. And then also, and then look at the citizens, that we're going to have a lot less complaints. Oh, the light bulb's out on my street. These need to be replaced much less. And also that there's some direction that we can be doing with the lights to shine them a little differently if they're going in someone's window in their home. So there's more flexibility as well with these lights. So that's why I believe we should act on this now. Thank you.
Okay. One quick question. Go ahead, Mr. Woods.
Warranty, guarantee, what's the,
7 years.
7 years? Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to throw in my 2 cents now. The grant, have we received that grant money or have we applied for that grant money yet?
You submit a pre-approval for it. I spoke to DCEO this afternoon
Yeah.
regarding this, and there's still plenty of money in the fund through year's end. They just actually last week they added an additional 14% incentive for projects that are complete above and beyond the norm for projects that are completed through year's end, which are factored into the numbers you have before you. That 14% will then go away, and then their program year ends next May 15th. At that point in time, state legislature will decide whether or not to re-up this program again for the following program year. So what we do know today is that we can get this $86,000 and change and apply it towards this project.
Okay. Let me phase that question again. Are you going to sit here today and go and guarantee me that that grant money is definitely in the bank?
Yes, I can. Was the
Okay.
question, when are we going to get it? Typically, DCO checks are received by folks like you within 30 to 60 days after final approval is submitted.
Okay. Let me ask the other question. It had met our threshold that going out for bid, it's over, we have a policy that we make in our city council here. My question to you, Jeff, in this grant money, if we decide to go out for bid, if this council decide to go out and see whatever else is out there, is this the only company that could do our lights? Have we checked into that? Go ahead.
The one thing about these lights, I can let Price get into the details on it. These lights are I don't know, a special LED light or whatever. I don't know what he wants to call it. There's a special engine in it that allows it to run 3 times longer than the standard LED light. And when I talked to Attorney Bond, he said because of the uniqueness of the light as far as the patented technology on the light, that this could be a sole source scenario. Price can get into the details of whatever patented technology he has, but they're rated 3 times longer than a standard LED light, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, the follow-up with that question is, my question is someone down the line here that does the same lighting companies going to pull that policy out? And it has been proven fact that we did not go out for bid, and they produce the same. And I'm not saying your company is obsolete or anything like that, but how do I know that there ain't another company that could outfit our lights just as much as he can out there? Here you go.
Well, there could be down the road.
Okay.
I don't know, but you're going to lose money that you're never going to get back.
I'm not going to lose. What money am I going to lose? The grant money is not here yet.
Not the grant money, the cost today for your maintenance and your energy costs. From this point on, moving forward, you can never recoup costs until you move on the conversion of the lights. So if you wait a year from now, you've lost $50,000
Again.
you'll never get back.
But again, I do not want to get caught in a trick bag that some company comes in here and say we didn't go out for bid. And it has been proven here on the city council that someone came back and filed something against us that we did not go out for bid with our proper procedure. I understand
Yeah,
that.
we'll clear
but-
that with the
but
city
point
attorney.
is, what I'm trying to say here is that anyone, there may be another company that could do it this as well. And I'm not saying that I'm in favor of this or which way I want to go, but I want to make sure legally that we're going to award a contract here or give him permission to go ahead with that, knowing that we don't have an attorney here tonight to address that concern I have. So my recommendation is if you prove this tonight, that whoever makes a motion that we prove it according to Pat Bond. And meanwhile, I'd like to know if there's other companies out there besides that company that could outfit these lights. I just,
We'll take care of the legal concerns you have. We've got 2 weeks. Next week is the fifth Thursday of the month, so we've got
Same.
plenty of time to sort out the issues. There's no final closure tonight, so.
Mr. Coles.
Eugene, if you want to see what a light is, buy yourself a flashlight by the name of Streamliner. And that's a flashlight that I have been using for years that have been LD lights. And they're guaranteed for a lifetime. I wore out I busted 3 of them. I sent them into the factory. They sent me 3 brand new ones. So they stick back of them. So that's a real good
Question.
flashlight.
Question.
They're expensive. They're 39 or 40 bucks a piece, but they got a terrific light in them. So if you ever want to buy a flashlight and you want a good one, you got to you buy this one and you'll never buy another flashlight again.
I'm not,
Takes AA batteries.
I'm not questioning lights. I just want clearance and legal opinion.
Yeah.
Could we actually award this contract? That's all I'm saying.
May I respond to your secondary concern about another company being able to do this, provide this kind of service? As far as we know, we are the only company out there that offers a UL-approved universal retrofit kit that's made in America. Okay? Understand that your streetlights, you've got about 4 different manufacturers out there. Okay? If you had an example, I believe it was down in Dixon, Illinois, I saw an article where they retrofitted their streetlights, but all their streetlights were manufactured by a company named Hubble. Okay? So Hubble came in and retrofitted their own lights. Okay? Again, we are, as far as we know, and we check every couple of months, we're the only UL-approved universal retrofit kit that's available currently. It's not to say that somebody else isn't going to do this, in the future, but that's where we are today. Okay?
Yeah, Jeff, didn't we look into some other companies too? I remembered that we contacted some people. I don't know if they came out and did any test sites, but that we did, whether it was John or one of Baxter's guys, did look into it.
I don't recall. I don't know if, do you recall? May have been internal lights. We had looked at some internal LED lights in the building for City Hall. We've definitely done that, and we're still doing that. But as far as the street lights, I'm not so sure.
The Clean Air Act, we've had them twice, and they came out twice to us, and they demonstrated the lights to us, the different kinds that they make, and it was amazing what they do to the street lights. They take, and they put the whole new guts inside of, excuse my language, but they just rip out everything inside and they put everything in there, and it's all new in there, and and they don't have any trouble with them, and they cut them to fit. So I believe that he was one of the gentlemen that were there. There was a couple other gentlemen come each time with him.
Okay, I'm going to call a question. On a roll call vote. Everyone understand the motion? Okay. Mike?
That's gonna check into it with the city attorney though, right?
Right. Alderman Roy Wesley.
We're gonna make sure we get this money before we, final as a council approval, 2 weeks? Or how long did you say?
September 6th.
What do you mean final? We're going to get the money. We have to get reimbursed, so we can't get the money unless we do the program. But we can
gotta-
get an answer to your legal questions by September 6th.
When he's saying final is when the project is done. Okay, I'm sorry.
So I'm going to question on roll call vote.
Alderman Roy Wesley,
Yes.
Alderman Coles,
Yes.
Alderman Shockey,
No.
Alderman Sizmarsky,
Yes.
Alderman Eugene Wesley,
No.
Alderman Winger,
Yes.
Alderman Woods.
Yes.
That carries. Okay, item number 12, report and recommendation and contract award to Thornton Electric Company for the Irving Park Road Salt Creek Bridge ornamental lighting installation not to exceed $43,578.00. That is my motion.
Second.
Questions?
This
Alderman Roy Wesley.
year, will this be done?
Mr. Mertz, I believe yes.
This one's going to be a close one. By the time we award the contract, the contractor's going to want some time in order to order the poles. They have to be specially manufactured. I think they could potentially get them up and installed. There might be some restoration work that would have to wait to the following year, though.
Didn't we,
No, we purchased it.
Wait,
did I
hang
go
on,
on?
hang on.
No,
We already
we already
purchased all
purchased
that.
them.
Then we should have it done by the end of the year, sir.
It's purchased.
Didn't we, Jeff?
They have been ordered. I don't know that they're here, sir. But we have them in here? Okay. That should be no problem.
I don't know if they're here yet. All right, Mayor,
Jeff, do we have the lights and the poles, or just the lights?
we ordered everything.
I really hate this project. To be honest, I don't know. I know we did order the lights. I believe the lights are in-house. The poles, I'm not sure if they're in-house yet. I don't know.
Right, because there was a question about the poles and IDOT,
I
and,
think we
There's a
ordered-
lot of questions with this
I
project.
think we got them all.
'cause and
I mean, the main impetus behind this project was the $75,000 grant we received a while back. So
from
this is
Representative
to close this out.
This goes back, Stefan was working on that.
Okay, so the motion is to approve this. Well, since this is part of the grant money, it's been approved already and we got the money in the bank. Any other questions, concerns? All right, roll call vote, please.
Alderman Roy Wesley,
Yes.
Alderman Coles,
Yes.
Alderman Shockey,
Yes.
Alderman Sizmarsky,
Yes.
Alderman Eugene Wesley,
Yes.
Alderman Winger,
Yes.
Alderman Woods.
Yes.
Okay. Item number 13, report and recommendation, Woodside H Homeowner Association Retention Pond testing not to exceed amount of $2,500. That is my motion.
Second.
Question.
they want to make a
Jeff, go ahead.
presentation.
I believe some representatives are here today and they had a PowerPoint presentation.
Okay, hang on a minute. Go ahead, Alderman Roy Wesley.
The question is I forgot your name, I'm sorry. Director,
Could we have their presentation first?
or maybe we don't need it. Do we need it? We seen them, are we gonna see the same thing as last time?
different presentation. We've done more research. We'll compare it.
Beautiful. Okay, then I'll say my question.
Tom, do you have control?
My question was, are you happy with the 2,500? But evidently. we're
No,
gonna
we
see-
have a different
Okay,
proposal.
Well, I do have a question about that. The 2,500 is money that's being appropriated for testing? I'm,
Yeah, just
Yes.
testing the water, testing the product, the ground and the water.
at the entire pond area or just the inlet?
so no one's communicated with
And
you?
Pond
on this?
One.
No, no one's communicated. I don't know if they've spoken to you, Jim, but I haven't heard
Okay.
any.
As far as testing goes,
I haven't heard any specifics about what the $2,500 is allocated for.
Supposed to be for testing.
John?
we sort of have,
Hang
I
on,
mean.
hang on.
Okay.
Mayor?
I believe Mr. Kramer was talking about testing the inlet pond when he was talking that $2,500 and maybe right across the street. He didn't specify exactly, but when I talked to Mr.
Well, the
Kramer,
one that, the pictures that they showed
no, he
was
was,
in
no,
Pond,
this was
Pond
John.
1. The pictures that they showed was in Pond 1.
Right, but
That's
Mr.
correct.
Kramer said we can take some samples, and I believe at the inlet pond, and I can't recall, he wasn't 100% specific if it would be across the street when it went underneath the road over there.
That would be in Pond 2 then.
And then, so I understand what the purpose of the testing?
Just to find out where it's coming from.
Joe?
Okay.
He's going to answer it because they already been involved in it.
Yeah, what Ms. Kramer wanted to do was test the discharge point, the pond at the discharge point, and check the soil out there and test it for what exactly is comprised, what the bottom of the pond is comprised of, be it the construction debris versus natural soils. So get a depth, get some samples out there, and get depths of the different materials out there. And the testing would be done in several locations around where the storm sewer discharges into the pond.
Well, can we give the presentation? Because I think what we have is, you know what prima facie evidence is? Basically, that means on its face. We can prove without digging into the soil that the sedimentation that is in the North Pond has actually come from Ward 1 and from the construction projects that have taken place over the last 4 years. Okay? So if I have the floor now, is that?
Go ahead, you already
Okay.
started.
First, I'd like to thank Nunzio and Eugene for allowing us to present to the Public Works Committee. Again, we feel that this issue is more related to the construction that's been going on over the last 4 years, and the storm sewer system has actually acted to convey the debris into the detention pond, okay? And the north detention pond, which is what we're going to talk about today, actually it was sort of designed to be the area where the sediment falls out of the water and settles into the pond, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to review quickly Woodside subdivision because I know we have new aldermen who don't know a lot about Woodside, so I'll give a brief overview of that. Review flow of the water into the ponds from Ward 1, okay? Also talk about the road construction that's taken place over the last 4 years, and then review the pond cleanup. We actually cleaned up the pond in 2008, and it's really strange that it's almost completely filled up again. So Tom, if you could give me the... Okay, this is just a recap of the Homeowners Association. We're actually a incorporated body. In 1994, we were incorporated. Construction of the Homeowners Association began in '92, was completed about 2000.
Excuse
Go
me.
ahead.
Yeah, why don't you take that mic there, the hand mic?
Oh,
It might be
okay.
easier for you, and then maybe you could point or whatever.
Around, thank you. Appreciate that, Roy. Thanks. Again, some people have been confused because they think of an association, they think of condo associations. We're not a condo association. We're a homeowners association. We're not a cooperative housing authority. We are incorporated to administer a common interest community, and basically the common interest that the homeowners have are the ponds. Woodside actually owns the ponds. And then we own a 20-foot strip of land around the ponds. And then we have 4 outlots, which are turnaround areas. Then we also have a couple of outlots. I can point it out here. This is what I'm referring to as the North Pond, okay? This is the middle pond, this is the south pond, okay? And upstream of us here is Ward 1, obviously, okay? Let me go here. Okay, the homes were built 92 through 2000. I talked about that. talk about the common areas. Now let's talk about ownership. Woodside actually owns the ponds, and then Wooddale owns the inlet, which is up here, and then the outlet, which is down here. And the water actually flows through, and it goes underneath Route 83. We're part of it's a storm retention system, and we're part of the storm retention system in Ward 1. Give me another one. Okay, why was the pond built? Okay, the pond was actually built because a natural creek exists in Wooddale, and right now that creek is contained in the storm sewer system. Okay, if you look over here, this is actually wetland that is part of the DuPage County Forest Preserve. So the water actually would flow down here and then into the ponds, and what they did when they constructed Woodside is they actually moved the creek, okay? So they created the ponds so that they could move the creek. They moved the creek so that they could build these houses, because I think the creek actually originally came through here, because there's a flood zone through here, so if you follow it, it actually came through that manner. Why am I showing this? I'm showing this to give you an idea of the natural flow of water through Ward 1, and we're basically at the low point, so the water naturally flows towards us. Next slide. Okay, Ward 1, okay, as I said before, the Ward 1 water basically flows to us from south of Montrose, from east of Cedar Street. So it's flowing southerly and then easterly, okay? Within the last 4 years, what has happened is that the City of Wooddale has improved their roads, and what they've done there is that they've replaced the streets, they've installed sidewalks, they've installed storm sewers, and they've installed curbs. And they've done that within the last, 4 to 5 years, okay? What I did is went on Google. They have a measuring device on Google, so I just want to give you an idea of how much road construction has been done in the last 4 years. And they've improved Montrose, Cedar, Iroquois, Montclair, South Central, Tioga, Hiawatha, Murray, and Deer Path. So in all, if you start adding up the numbers of miles, they've done close to 3 miles of road construction that is actually in the area of our water flow. Next slide. Okay, this is the storm sewer inlet of the North Pond. This is actually owned by Wooddale. Okay, so Wooddale actually is responsible for cleaning it out. And this is where all the storm sediment or the stormwater comes through to the North Pond. Next slide. Okay, as I said before, the street improvements included the storm sewers, obviously, okay? And one of the things that I want to point out, I'm also on the Stormwater Committee, and we've been studying the new management plan. And one of the things that's unique is that the new DuPage County Management Plan discourages the use of storm sewers. They prefer the culverts, which actually, have been replaced. So, again, those were changed out. Now, in addition to adding storm sewers on the street, they also added storm sewers in the lawns. So the water that was ponding on the lawns is actually now conveyed through the storm sewer system. So not only are we getting the street water, but we're getting the water on the lawns. Next one. Then there's also 10 by 10 scuppers. These are smaller scuppers that, again, is taking water from the lawn and it's putting it into the storm sewer system. Next one. Okay, as I said before, the pond inlet, this is the pond inlet to the, actually it's not, this is the pond inlet. This will actually flow to the middle of the pond. This was cleaned out in 2008, 4 years ago. Okay, and this is after 16 years of the homes being built. So that's pretty good. And what we were expecting is we were hoping that the clean out would last another 15 years. Next slide. This is just to give you an idea of how they cleaned the pond out. They used a vacuum apparatus. Next slide. They worked from within the pond. They actually had a man with a rake, and he raked out the debris. And the man there with the scuba outfit on, he was actually with the sucker hose, and he was sucking up the muck. And next slide. The muck was collected in a sediment bag, and the bag was actually, that was sitting just between the, what I call the north pond and the middle pond. And the muck was sitting there, the water would flow out, and after, I don't know how many weeks it took 2 weeks, I believe. Pardon? Before they removed it? Well, before, when it was completed. 8 weeks? It took, well, 8 weeks for it to dry out. Yeah, okay. But they worked for about 2 weeks, I believe. Okay. So the sediment was collected in bags, and then, next slide. This gentleman might look familiar. He actually walked through the pond. This is that small pond that I was talking about before, where you see the outflow from the storm sewers. Tommy actually walked through the ponds, and the pond was pretty much cleaned out. Okay? And next slide. I guess what we're here to answer, what we're here to give you a clue on, is to why the pond had refilled in 4 short years. I'm going to hand it over to Tom. Are there any questions so far? Go ahead, Mike.
You guys, you don't call yourself Ward 1, you say Ward 1 is separate from you.
No. We're part of Ward 1.
Okay, well, the way you're saying it is like you're separated.
No, we're not. No, not at all. We're,
Is the pond used for swimming or anything
No.
else?
no, not at all. I would not.
No, I just want to know why you keep it so clean. I mean, it's sediment goes to the bottom, so I just want to make sure you're not putting fish or swimming or.
There are
There are
fish,
fish in
there are
there.
fish in the pond. We had a huge fish kill 2 years ago, but the reason we're trying to keep the sediment out of there is to keep the algae down. It's very difficult to keep the algae down. So this was a presentation that was put together by Joe Damaraki, who couldn't be here tonight, so I'm going to just wing my way through this thing. Some of the stuff you've already seen. We've added a couple of slides, but go ahead, Nick, or Jim, if you're going to do it. Joe was focusing on the Central Avenue construction project that's been ongoing, that we were just talking about earlier tonight. It's approximately half a mile from our subdivision. The storm sewers in that area do discharge and make their way into our ponds. When you were asking about Ward 1, the reason we were kind of differentiating is because from what we've learned is that the vast majority of the stormwater from Ward 1 flows through our ponds. What we're contending is that the construction project has allowed a great deal of excavated dirt and debris to enter the storms and flow into our ponds. So we've got some pictures here. We'll show the pictures. Go ahead, Jim. You can see the discoloration of the water. Again, Jim talked about the inlet up there, and this is the North Pond. This was a rain event on July 1st, what little rain we've had this year, but you can see how cloudy the water gets just from this water coming in from upstream. Go ahead, Jim. Now, these are some pictures of the actual storm sewers on Central Avenue that are part of this construction project. You'll see that they've got a protection basket in there to try to collect the debris, but they're getting completely filled up and not functioning very properly. You can see this drain here is completely clogged. Additional pictures along Central. This was July 19th. That picture up here, I think, tells 1,000 words right here. Where's that going to go? The water that looks so cloudy here is actually the north pond. This is actually the middle pond. So the water flows in this direction into the middle pond. We spend the vast majority of our budget, our annual budget, on the maintenance of the ponds, over $10,000 a year of just maintaining the ponds. We have a service clerk that comes out, the same clerk that does the mosquito abatement for the city. They maintain our ponds. They come out weekly to treat them for algae. They put dye in the water to help keep the sun from hitting the bottom and growing algae. The whole point of all this is we're trying to keep the stink down and the algae. And we've been told by several experts that the sediment in the pond is making it environmentally difficult to control the algae growth. Again, part of the Central Avenue construction, they're actually pumping out one of these holes. They were pumping water right into the storm sewer when they were, I'm not exactly sure what exactly they were doing, but they had a hole dug and they were pumping water out of that hole right into the storm sewer. Again, those are 2 pictures of our inlets on the 28th. Those were taken. Go ahead, Jim. This was today. I actually went in the pond today with a shovel and was digging up what's in there. It almost looks to me like blacktop, like asphalt in certain parts of it. There's another video on the next slide, but so the 2 stills on the bottom are just a picture of what I pulled out of there. And then this is right on the concrete portion of the apron. So I'm scraping right off of here. Or actually, that's under the street. That spills into here. So I'm actually scraping the sediment in this area here. It's got a layer of algae on top of it, but it's sitting on the sediment. So our contention is that we shouldn't be responsible for cleaning up the sediment that has made its way into our pond. The entire ward is benefiting from the water flowing through our ponds. It's stormwater that needs to go someplace, and the way it was designed, it's going to come through our ponds. And we spent $20,000 4 years ago to have the ponds vacuumed out, as Jim showed. And 4 short years later, when I walked through there today, it was at least 1.5 feet of muck in that little pond. And when I was in there 4 years ago, I was walking on a concrete bottom with nothing in there. So we have a proposal from a company called OSR, Organic Sediment Removal. And they've done some testing, and their estimate is there is about 1.5 feet of sediment in 0.22 acres of water, the area that we're talking about here. And their proposal is $8,700 to vacuum that out, and that's over a 3-day period. What that doesn't include is it doesn't include the removal of the sediment after it dries out. Same process that Jim showed, where it gets vacuumed out into a bag. It sits in the bag for a period of time until it dries out. And once it's dried out, we have to hire a contractor to come in, scoop it up, truck it away. We don't have a price on that yet. That concludes our presentation. Questions? Yes.
Alderman Roy Wesley.
Questions to the engineer? Questions to the engineer, what's going on here? I take this as Pulte's project?
There's the water main work over there does flow through the storm sewers to this pond, but there's been projects in this area for a couple of years now. And what's going on, this is the natural drainage path of the ward, as they showed, and there's discharge of storm water from the surrounding area into this pond. We're not certain how much of the discharge that they're finding out there is due to construction debris or just natural sediment and sedimentation.
But what I'm seeing here, could you go back to that slide of where all the gravel was on those? You've seen it.
Yeah,
That's unacceptable.
the
I mean-
sediment, the rocks near the
Yeah.
storm sewer.
That is very unacceptable.
Yeah, we've got measures in the contract for the contractor to install the best managed practices, the baskets within the inlets, and.
But that picture right,
I got
thanks,
you.
Nick. That picture right there,
Yeah,
that basket's totally filled. It has to be.
right. Yeah, we found that there were a number of them that were filled. We had the contractor clean them out, replace them, put them back in the correct manner. You know, there's ongoing operations out there. We try to be vigilant, watch the construction, make sure the guys adhering to it. We've got a deficiency deduction in the contract to charge the contractor if we find these type of things for their deficiencies. But the pay items are in the contract to handle the bulk of the sedimentation that would be released from the construction project.
Okay, I'm looking at putting this back on the contractor, some of his bill. And, you know what? Honestly, who is supposed to be watching this? Engineers are supposed to be watching this? Put them responsible too, and put some of the bill on them too. Because they're supposed to be watching the contractor, that's what we pay them for. So the engineer should be responsible, the contractor should be responsible. To pay $8,700 in our behalf, I think, okay, fine, maybe, I don't know if we want to go that far and saying that we would haul it away or whatever. I don't know what the cost on that would be, but if we could put it back on the contract and the engineer firm, that's where I think it should go.
I mean, when you're,
I'm in agreement with Alderman Roy Wesley as well that, and according to the pictures, it does look like the contractors are not following the standard operating procedures. Now, so the monies that would go, maybe not the whole 8,700, but monies that would go to clean up some of the pond, that should really come from contractors as well as people to enforce that. Have we charged the contractors at all for this type of behavior?
They have cleaned up the sites as we found them, not in compliance with the requirements. They've gone in and made the cleanup. They've removed the material where it was covering these grates. They've emptied out the baskets as we've notified them. We haven't charged them anything to date.
it usually, contractor, just so you know, is NQ, not Pulte.
Correct. This is the water main contractor, but again, there's been other projects out there over the years. What we would like to do is test the sedimentation that's out there right now and find out what the depths of the materials are, how much of our natural materials versus construction materials before we go and try to assess the fault to the contractor. We're not sure if all the material that's out there is sediment from construction or if it's natural sediment, or what percentage it may be. At this point, we don't have that information. That's why our recommendation would be to test the materials to find out what percentage would be.
Okay. Mr., are you done?
Well, just as a follow-on, it's $2,500, and that's essentially a third of what you're really asking for. So that's part of my concern of we're going to spend $2,500 to test it when we do have pictures to show that there was some problematic behavior out there. So it's kind of a balancing act of what we really do to act on this. Thank you.
Mr. Woods?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, but unfortunately, I think in the world that we live in with all the attorneys, we're going to need to do the test to test out what it is, because no matter what we do, somebody else is going to argue the other side of the coin. So I say this goes back to the city manager, the engineers, and the city attorney to work out what they need to work out as far as testing and apportionment of, you know, where the blame goes, what part's ours, and what part is natural. Thank you.
That street was rebuilt in 2003. Central was rebuilt 2003. Montclair was built 2006. And so was Iroquois at 2006. Now, prior to that, Montrose was done in 2002. So them streets have, except for what they did with the water pipe now, that's the first time them streets have been touched for less than 4 years, except for Deer Path. Finally got Deer Path done. But that took 7 years to get that little street done. So, I mean, and you were saying that you had it cleaned out in 2008. Well, when you cleaned out the street in 2008, there was no construction there in 2008, because I live over there. I live on Montclair. And them streets were all done in 2006. So there was no constructions over there. And then, I hate to say anything, but it wasn't anything to do with the streets except what it is now. Now, there was one house built in Ethan Woods, and I don't think that house had anything to do with the digging and anything, and for one house, for what you say. Now, I mean, I don't know. I mean, that was a swamp. At Ethan Woods was a swamp. It had a stream running through there, and in the summertime, in the springtime, it was waist deep, 8 foot wide, because I used to walk my German Shepherd in there, and you couldn't go across it. And we used to go down, further down into your area, and that had a stream running through it. So I know about the stream. I've been living there for 40 years now. I know all about where the water comes from, because on Montclair, we used to flood where you couldn't drive a car through, or a truck, because that used to flood. So the water that comes out of the forest preserve goes right down Central, and it goes right down Iroquois, not Iroquois, but it goes down Edgewood, and it goes down into the retention pond that we put in on 3rd Avenue. Now think of it, there was no retention pond when you were building your houses there. And we put that in to try to help you with your water retention. And you showed a picture of a man with a suit on, and that was by the dam. Now that was by the, because I know where the dam is, the waterfall. He was cleaning out over there. Now that was nowhere near the front pond. Now I'm not arguing with you. I'm not going against you. We know there's been a trouble in the first ward for years, and anybody that's lived in that area knows it. So you're talking to somebody that just sat back and watched and just listened to what you were saying, and all of you were saying was the same thing. It was true. Don't get me wrong, it was true, but I don't know what to do about it. So,
Can I respond?
all right.
You're right, the construction that took place on those other roads was prior to when we cleaned it out in 2008, which makes it even more amazing that there's that much sediment in the pond from just 2 projects of Central and Deer Path. So there's an awful lot of sediment that's ended up in that little pond from small construction, big construction projects, but just 2. The other thing is the amount of improvements that have happened in those areas that you've talked about that used to flood is conveying all that stormwater to those ponds much quicker than it did before.
Oh, yes, I'll agree with you.
Okay, so
I'll
that
agree with
increased flow of water is bringing all that additional debris with it. And as far as the picture, I don't know what dam you're referring to, but that was me in the water, in the small
you
pond,
in
in the
the-
small pond with the rake after it was cleaned.
I
And the
swear
other
that was-
pictures were,
That was by the fall.
I'm not sure what fall or dam you're referring to,
Well,
but
you
those
have
pictures
the-
were all,
At the other end of
oh, at the outlet?
the outlet.
No, no, those pictures were all of the small pond, the north pond.
Okay.
Mr. Woods?
Yeah, I just want to restate what I said before. I think we need to turn this over to the city manager, the engineer, and the attorney. They can work it out with the association, let them do the testing, and figure this all out. We're not going to sit here and debate this evening and come up with an answer. Thank you.
Alderman Roy Wesley. Is that the opinion of the engineer to do the testing? Let it, like,
Mr.
Okay,
Well, engineer's part of staff. Staff recommendation was to do the testing.
That was Mr. Kramer's recommendation too.
is that the recommendation from the engineer, though, the firm that we have?
Yes.
Yes. In that case, I'd say go ahead and do the testing. When it comes back, we bill back Baxman and Woodman and the contractor $11,200 to clean up that pond, if it comes back that way.
Well, let's see what the test comes back first, then we'll take
Well, I want to
that.
make that in form of a motion that, not, maybe not a form of a motion, but just to put on the table that I'm going to leave responsible for the contractor and the engineer firm for this project that they're supposed to be watching.
Mayor, police.
Basically, if we have the outside firm test it, then it's gonna be up to our attorney to get us the money for whoever was naturally managing the project or constructing the project. It all depends what the result's gonna be. We can't make a motion on they have to pay. The attorney's gonna tell you that
Who's
depending
liable?
how the result comes in, is that's who he's gonna go after.
Well, we have the right to keep money back.
Right, at the final payment, once we figure out if we awarded the testing, at the final payment, we could hold money back from the contractor. It's always been with every contractor that we don't pay out, that it's neglect or something else. But until we determine what is actually in that pond, because I guarantee you, if we don't test it, this company may want to test it and say, we're going to challenge this claim against us. So one way or another, eventually it's got to be tested. So we do it now or not. Go ahead, Mayor.
And actually, before we make this payment for $442,000 at the next meeting, the attorney's gonna have to give us direction on how much money we can hold back, because I see
Ain't
there's
the
a.
final.
Well, no, balance of remaining work, contract, $48,472. So we might gonna have to ask the attorney if he can hold something else back. Because the 48,000, I take it, is for the punch list, correct?
It is, it's your normal retention you hold on a contract.
Ms. Winger?
Mr. Wither, is it your contention that it's multiple contractors over the past 4 years and not just the most recent one? Or are you saying that this most recent one has done the bulk of the damage?
Well, we had complaints last year as well. We had complaints last year as well, and I believe the contractors last year did a better job of protecting the storm sewers. I think they actually put hay around the storm sewers, and they didn't take such measures with this project. I have another set of slides that I can show that will actually show storm sewers that were not protected. None of the storm sewers and the lawns were protected, and there are many of them in the lawns. And then also they were pumping the water from the pits into the storm sewers, and we have pictures of that. So, I guess I would say a lot of it is from the current construction project.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Mike, you have anything? If not, I'm calling the question. All right, let's call it. Yeah, so the motion on the floor is spend $2,500 to do the testing. That is a motion on the floor. I did have a second, am I correct, Eileen?
Second.
On a roll call, please.
Alderman Roy Wesley,
Yes.
Alderman Coles,
Yes.
Alderman Shockey,
Yes.
Alderman Sizmarsky,
Yes.
Alderman Eugene Wesley,
Yes.
Alderman Winger,
Yes.
Alderman Woods.
Yes.
That most passes. Item to consider future meeting. The one item that I would like to be put on the agenda is Ethan Woods. That was part of road projects to repave the Ethan Woods. We need to know the status on that, if we were going to pave it this year or what the deal is on that. So we need to find out what the deal is with Ethan Woods. I know it's been pulled off Pulte's contract at this time. Okay?
There was a court date earlier this week. I'm waiting on an update from the city attorney's office. I should have it by tomorrow. It'll be in the packets tomorrow, hopefully.
Okay. Anything else on the agenda? Alderman Roy Wesley.
I would like to do a new engineer list. To update the list.
Okay.
Could we have it on next month possibly?
Yes. Are you done?
Yeah.
Just a comment, I had a resident call. Thank you to the water department. They had a water main break on South Cedar. They came out, residents were taken care of in good and quick fashion. She just called, left me a message. I want to just pass it.
Okay. I will have one quick thing. Clark, I talked to Clark Mosquito today. He called me. They did the third spraying through the city of Wooddale already. That was the end of our contract, the three sprays. But we did have, there is part of the contract that there is one more if we need it. At this time, they feel that we do not need it. They did the citywide spray last night, and they did Bensville, and they did Itasca last night. So they sprayed the community around us. So as of right now, they see no need to do that fourth spraying at this time unless the count goes up.
I just gonna need to get the mayor a beekeeper suit to keep the mosquitoes away from him.
All right, anything else? I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you.
Do we want a 5-minute break? Okay, I was just taking a 5-minute break. I do declare a quorum. I make a motion to approve minutes dated July 12, 2012. Is there a second?
Second.
Anything on the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item is report and recommendation on adoption of the revised Wooddale Building Code amendments. And with that, I'm going to ask Mr. Forrest to take us through the amendments that are proposed.
All right, thank you, Madam Chairman. It's nice to be back to try and get this finished. It seems like President Bush was in office when we started this, but we'll get this finished now. The just Reader's Digest version, just to kind of recap what the issue is the adoption of the City of Wooddale Local Building Code Amendments, which adopts by reference the 2012 International Code Council Building Code Group, which we've already done in anticipation of this code being updated and revised. Again, local communities typically adopt the international code, but then they also have some local code amendments to kind of tailor the international code for their community and also for their code enforcement philosophies. We've had a local building code in the municipal code as Chapter 12 since the 1970s. At that point, it was actually a standalone building code that gave a lot of direction on how something was supposed to be constructed. Over the years, with the development of the national and now the international codes, our local building code is just more of referencing us to these other codes, but then again, we do keep some things that are a little more specific to our area in the local code. So it's been many years, probably since before I started here, that this code has had any kind of substantial rewriting, which I think we've accomplished. Hopefully this should serve the city for quite a few years with minor adjustments as new products and techniques occur. What we've got here, there's 7 or 8 changes that were made in the final draft of our local code amendments that were the result of the committee meetings. Let's see, I believe from earlier this spring or early summer. So we can just quickly, I'll just go over these on page 7, number 5B, where we're talking about final grading on a property. We had just had that after approved vegetation had been established, an as-built survey would have to be done. What we did is we added a section here, or other vegetation approved by the city engineer, giving somebody a little alternative other than grass or sod, something like that.
Like rain garden material or something?
Correct,
for us? Okay.
correct. And, you know, it would be a material that would be approved by the city engineer, approved for erosion control, and would serve the same purpose as the cedar sod. Also, the end of that section has a requirement that if the as-built survey is completed prior to the vegetation being established, possibly due to the weather conditions or the time of year, but somebody needs occupancy, at the point where vegetation is established, they would have to provide us with another as-built survey so that we can verify that the grading and the elevations comply to the approved plan.
Any questions on the Alderman Woods?
Yeah, one question, what does established mean? If I roll out sod on my lot, have the engineer come out and shoot it, and then turn it in, am I in compliance, or do I have to wait and water the sod for a week?
Established would mean it's been in place long enough where when you walk on it, it's not sliding apart.
Is that in writing? I mean,
I would leave that to the engineer's discretion when they go out to do the final inspection. If they don't feel that the sod is established, I would assume they would reject.
I mean, should
the
we put a
inspection.
time frame in? I mean, what's your thoughts on that? I mean, I look at it, it's kind of arbitrary that, you know, I wait a week and then you go, it's not good enough, you get wait another week, or, I don't know, do we get rain, or is it dry, does the grass, I mean, there's a lot of variables.
Well, typically
to
new
that.
sod has got to be, I mean, if the engineer would care to comment on that, I would think depending on how much the sod is watered, what time of year it is, the quality of the sod, that could be a variable. You're correct. So established would mean that it's established. It's there, it's ready. If you want to cut the grass, you can cut the grass without having to worry about it being ruined. But if the city engineer would like to define what he feels is established, we can certainly add that.
And the biggest reason, so everybody knows that I'm asking, is obviously certificate of occupancy is predicated on passing this portion. So if I'm trying to close a bank loan or something like that, you can see how, not knowing how I'm gonna get one thing done, you know, how do I, you know, get the other thing done? How do I make the banks happy, or close the loan, or close the sale, or whatever it is?
The two things we typically look for with the establishment of sod or seeded grass, or one is the knitting of the sod, you know, knitted together, basically, like was said, it's not slipping apart from the different pieces, that it's knitted together. And we also look for some evidence of new growth, height difference, or new filling in of the area. So once we see evidence of new growth and the fact that it's not moving on us, then typically we would call that established.
Do we have any way to, maybe in definitions, define that, laced together? I don't know, maybe I'm too picky. I just know when it comes down to, you know, getting a project closed out, especially when you're dealing with banks, I don't have any idea if that's gonna take me 1 week, or 5 weeks, or 10 weeks, or 3 months, for that matter.
I can look for guidance in the state manual.
Now, right, if
for
there,
that type of-
I mean, there's gotta be something.
Well, I'm looking at a definition just online here, a random definition. I'm sure we could find other ones, but sod is defined as sod or turf is the grass and the part of the soil beneath it held together by the roots or a piece of the material.
Right, I mean, that's a, you know, if we put something in definitions or whatever, it doesn't have to be part and parcel of that code section, but maybe I'm sure there's other definitions in the definition section that maybe we could modify to include that.
All right, I'll see what we can do when we come back to council.
Okay,
Okay, the next change that we made, again, a result of the meeting, page 8, 8B, vacant structures. We tried to a little more clearly define what types of vacant structures would require a pre-occupancy inspection by staff. And we added this phrase in there, structures left vacant due to abandonment of any type or vacant commercial and industrial occupancies. And then I would like to add a comma after occupancies at that point. That have been posted by the City of Wooddale Building Department must call for pre-occupancy life safety inspection. Whereas before, I think it read vacant structures of any type must be inspected. So again, vacant structures left vacant due to abandonment, where typically abandonment is when people leave the property with no intention of maintaining it, no intention of coming back, reoccupying it.